I was very interested. I kept waiting for you to talk a little bit about the Philippines
Mm,
uh, and such. And I think you answered, the five big challenges is quite obvious why that perhaps the Philippines needs to get its act together more. But my question to you would be uh, call centers versus data centers. And I sent you earlier, can you define a call center data center? Because I understand what it is, but to
mm.
me, the Philippines is those five that you mentioned, the five challenges, are there for the call center business as well. I mean, they got to have a good power supply. They got to have good connectivity. Perhaps what they don't need is the sea cable per se, but they got to have a political climate's good. They got to be concerned about the typhoons and the hurricanes, or the typhoons and the earthquakes and such. So, what and can you talk a little bit about why that the, say for example the Philippines can thrive with the call center business, but it's not necessarily looking too good for the data centers.
I think one of the thing is also about power. I mean, just top of my mind, call centers may not take up that much power because you have a lot more computing softwares in data centers because you have storage, you have servers, and sometimes you also currently, NVIDIA, they now have graphic cards that they are more advanced. And with all these new technologies, you need it just is it's way more power sucked in that sense. First thing. Second thing is that I think as you know, there's a reason why Singapore had most number of data centers because we started off with like Hong Kong and Singapore being like all the financial districts for South like Asia Pacific. So when people set up data centers in Singapore, they don't see a need to go out to the emerging markets yet because they can service all the other emerging markets from Singapore. But as time goes by, Singapore government they agree on Paris Agreement. We have to bring down our carbon emissions. We have to do a lot of other things because we are also more advanced in the skill. So people start expecting more from us, which also is why people are starting to look at other areas of investment. I mean, historically, to be fair, in the last 1 year, I've not had that many requests for Philippines, which is why I was just trying to share a bit more. Maybe some of the that being said, I've been speaking to one of the up and coming colos. They have told me that they are in the advanced stages in Philippines. I know PLDT does quite a lot of data centers also in the Philippines. Um, I think one more thing, App, is also about perception. Maybe you might say that the infrastructure. I have not done a deep dive, to be fair. We should do a thorough study into Philippines and look at all your structures and see whether it really matches up to Malaysia or Indonesia, that kind of thing. But happy to do more research on that. But that being said, it's also a perception issue, right? Whether your investors and your customers want to go there. I know it's very big for BPOs and call centers, but one more thing is that you can't even have, like, for example, call center, if something, I don't know, there's a flood or there's an earthquake or something goes down, right? So what is the cost to the company? I know there's a cost, but I'm pretty sure the cost for data center going down would be way higher than the call center going down. I mean, off the top of my mind, I don't have the exact numbers right now, but I can definitely feel that there is that variance. And people are always very scared in data centers to try something new. So actually, there are more better ways to design. But everyone is like, you go first. No, you go first. I don't really want to take that. You know what I mean?
Oh,
I don't want to take that step. Yeah, because customers would be like, okay, so for example, BA, I shall not name the operator, but British Airways actually had a downtime in their data centers, which was handled by one of the other operators in the market. And they were billed a lot of money because you can't possibly have that happen. You know what I mean? Because the cost of the business is like in the millions or billions just by going down for a few minutes. Okay, imagine you are in the New York Stock Exchange, just a few minutes. Or like SGX being hosted in Philippines just by down for a few minutes. Suddenly you might have your stocks being shifted to somebody else, things like that. It's like there are different kinds of businesses and they might have different kinds of worries and their risk mitigation levels might be different, which is also why they do a very thorough analysis on where they should go. But a lot of times, that being said, I know Philippines is definitely up and coming. And there are a lot of customers looking at it because I know you have a huge population. This morning someone said the average age is 24.
right.
Yeah, in Philippines, and that's amazing. Yeah, and I think for Indonesia, one of the reasons why Indonesia is also because they have 5 tech unicorns there. Gojek. I can't remember the rest of the names, but the tech giants are like the tech unicorns are also there. So I think when Philippines start building your tech unicorns, I'm quite sure more people will go there to support you too. Because as you know, Indonesia is a collection of all the different islands, right? Philippines also have like, all your different islands and things like that. So I do see a similarity, which is why I shared Indonesia and Malaysia as a case study. to show you like where the path is going. So it's something, a point of discussion. Yeah, in a sense. Yeah. I hope that
Thank
answers your
you.
question. Yeah.
We have a few more minutes. I just had a couple of other questions, I think. But one of them, I did not hear you mention any at all, I don't think, was data privacy.
Mm,
I think that may fall under the political climate, but
mm.
the protection of your data and such, is that a major factor to consider?
Yes. So if the Philippine government decide to do that, just like what the Indonesian government did, more
Right,
data centers will have to be with you. It's like onshoring. Yeah, you have no choice because if you have like China too, right? China and Hong Kong, why are people not, that issue going on, national security law and things like that. And when people start closing up their borders and then make it a mandate, a government regulation to do that, then it is a by no choice. If you're going to work with Philippines, you need to store your data on Philippine island, that kind of thing. So if you're going to work with Singapore, you're going to store in Singapore, but we don't have that. We don't say you need to store information here, that kind of thing. So like Switzerland, Sweden, that kind of thing. So, but if you start doing that, Indonesia definitely has that. There's like financial institutions, small, medium enterprise. There's a lot of more cloud computing there because of all the regulations that came out. Yeah. The security law, as you're saying, data security law. Yeah.
I came from Indonesia to Philippines.
Yeah.
So
So,
I was
you know,
familiar with
right? You know, right?
quite
Yeah,
familiar
yeah,
with
yeah.
that issue many years ago, and I guess it still exists.
Yeah.
And finally, just this is a real estate meeting today. So can you talk a little bit about possibly why that say data centers are attractive as an asset class investment?
Great question. I thank you for asking that. We're seeing more investors looking to enter and increase their exposure to data center sector as it offers diversification benefits and tends to have higher yields than traditional asset classes such as office or retail. So you're asking like, okay, so what numbers are you talking about? We're looking
Right.
at IRR between 10 to 15%. So for mature developed markets, and for emerging markets, anywhere from 15 to 22%. So yeah, it's pretty high. So like most people are going towards emerging markets. I've heard, the last time I've heard one of it was like 21%. Yeah, for emerging markets. So
Wow.
then after that, on top of that, 25 to 30-year lease terms, very attractive, long lease terms. People don't like to move. Once they move in, they just want to be there. And aggressive fixed annual indexation. And generally, you have better covenants with data centers and potential to charge a global rent on each and every floor rather than half rent of industrial equivalent. So if you're doing like rent comparison, in say if industrial you get like $1,000 per square feet, for example, you get double that for data centers. Yeah. So
You
yeah.
you mentioned that Singapore was keeping it to itself for a while, managing it from there. Is it necessary to have a physical presence in a country to run a data center?
A physical presence
Yeah,
in the
you mentioned that you mentioned like Microsoft and some of the others are actually opening their office in Jakarta or in
Mm,
Indonesia. But couldn't they
mm.
manage those same operations from somewhere besides Indonesia?
They can, but it's about, okay, so as you know, we are all consuming a lot of data, right? So the further you are from your consumers, there might be a lag time.
Okay,
So
that's
that,
latency
yeah,
issue again.
yeah. So you
Latency.
want to be as close, yeah, latency issues, yes. You want to be as close as possible to your population, which is why there's this huge talk about edge computing, like where is it going to go? Like how are people going to invest in that area and things like that? Yeah. It's that's one of the things. So yeah, you don't really have to be there, but I think it's a strategic viewpoint. And on top of that, not just the cloud providers, they'll like, for example, Digital Realty or Equinix, they're big providers, right? They ask their clients, where do you want to go? And if they tell you, oh, Vietnam, then they will find a way to build in Vietnam. Whatever it takes, they'll find a way to build it there because there is money in it. Yeah. So
Well,
yeah.
gosh, Adeline, that's great information, and I really appreciate your openness to talk about it. I think that we've reached the witching hour of closing
Yep.
time. We want to leave time for NBC and Coco to do some closing remarks, but I just want to extend my appreciation. I know that you're in Singapore, taking time out of your busy day to participate in today's session. And what a session! You really laid it out there very. I mean, I was struggling there for a few minutes to find some questions for you because you make it so clear. So congratulations on the great presentation.
Thank you for
So
having
back
me.
to you, Melissa.
Yep.
Thanks again.
Thanks. Bye.